Welcome back to Baltimore's best damn sports show, Charm City Beat. It's a sad one, but we're going to get through. We're going to pull through it. Let's get to the show. So let's just talk about the Orioles right out the gates. Adam Jones is gone.
He gone.
Wow. Who's left?
Chris Davis.
Chris Davis, we got him. Okay. Swinging for the fucking fences. Cool.
He's having a horrendous spring, by the way. He's been striking out a ton.
This doesn't surprise me.
And he's in the books for a long time.
Any chance they start him in the minors? Any chance?
I don't think so. I think they're
paying
going to ride him out, and I think at some point they're going to have to cut bait.
Yeah.
They're going to have to eat the money because,
it'll be better in the long run.
But again, we do have a couple of names.
Well, I was just going to touch on Adam Jones real quick because we all knew it was going to happen. Okay, we knew he wasn't coming back. We tricked ourselves into believing the later that spring got, maybe there was a chance. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the news nonetheless was
$3 million.
I was surprised by the 1 year, $3 million deal. I think analytics really hurt him. Yeah. I don't think they're looking at what he also brings to the clubhouse, which is leadership, veteran. And the guy made the All-Star game multiple times, multi-Gold Glove winner. I think 1 or 2 years he finished in the MVP talk.
I mean, possibly a prove-it deal, or maybe he Arizona could use him as a trade chip, in the middle of the year. Yeah. Because a team that's in it, that's not a deal that they're, or that's a deal that they would be willing to take on. And maybe it's a kind of a prove-it deal. If he wants to continue playing, maybe he gets a 2 or 3 year deal next year. But I mean, good for him. I mean, he went to a team that is. He went to a team. That's all I can really say. I mean, he was unsigned for so long. I thought it would have happened a long time ago. Yeah. But it is definitely for the Orioles. I mean, that era is officially dead, and the new era is here. So.
Yeah, I think literally with the Orioles front office, it was just hit that reset button. They hit that button hard because only people were left for a bunch of young guys, and a few guys held over from the a couple of years, the last couple of years. But for the most part, like you even said, when you went to the
Fan Fest,
you rarely recognize anybody, and we knew that going into the season that there were going to be a lot of new faces. But in my head, I tricked myself into thinking Adam Jones would be at least one of those familiar faces, and I was horribly wrong. But it seems like Youngblood seems to be the new trend in Baltimore, honestly. Yeah. Just in both teams, because even on the Ravens, we had to get rid of a lot of people. But sticking with the Orioles, I think it's one of those things where they're sacrificing probably the next 2 years just to build.
Yeah. It's going to happen regardless of Adam Jones.
Yeah.
Adam Jones wasn't even that effective the last couple years. I mean, he's a shell of what he once was, and if you put him out in that outfield, he could barely patrol center field, and you're taking up spots where younger guys like a Mullins or a Hayes can develop.
Yeah, and I mean,
Stewart, if you will.
I mean, we definitely he handled it graciously. I mean, he let Cedric Mullins take over, and again, I think this team they're probably not going to win many games, but one thing I do think we'll see is that they're going to play hard. They're going to play hard. Mm-hmm. They're going to be running. They're going to be. I think stealing bases is going to be one of their things this year. I think maybe we'll see some of the fundamentals that we didn't see. Yeah. Again, I was watching a few spring training games, and I was watching. They're stealing bases, and again, spring training is they're fine tuning things, but I mean speed. I mean the Orioles in stolen bases. I think they've been last, and
I think Jonathan Villar will steal 60 some bases this year. Yeah, he had a tremendous pickup last year. Under the radar, came over in that Jonathan Scope deal, and I think he could easily steal. He could lead the American League in stolen bases. Oh yeah. He's got nothing to lose at the top of that lineup.
I was gonna say I think they're gonna feed off of each other, and again, they may string some wins together that we're not expecting. I don't think anything crazy is gonna happen. I do think they'll approach that 100 loss mark, but I think it's gonna be different in terms of you'll see the upswing, especially later in the year when they're playing together, and some of these young guys that start in the minors, they come up. There's reason for optimism. Yeah. So
there's a lot of reason for hope, and we're going to kind of transition into our next topic because there is a lot of reason for hope in the Orioles. Because right now our expectations are meant to be low. They had the worst season probably in club history, or at least one of them, and they got rid of a bunch of familiar household names. Yeah. And again, they're starting anew with a new manager. You know, I mean, everything is new in Baltimore. But on the Ravens, it's crazy, man. Like, it's really crazy. Let's just go down the losses. C.J. Mosley.
He gone.
Zadarius Smith.
He gone.
Weddle.
He gone.
Flacco.
He gone.
John Brown.
He's gone.
Suggs.
He's gone.
Damn. Yeah. A lot of familiar names on that list. And again, I'm not going to lie, that knee-jerk reaction this morning, as you know, I turn on my phone and I see C.J. Mosley going to the Jets and the Suggs deal's official. I'm like, shit. We just went to the playoffs with all these guys. What the hell are we going to do this year? So it's like my expectation for the Ravens at the end of the season were pretty high, honestly. I thought, okay, we're going to probably beef up the offense, you know, build around Lamar. Defense is okay, you know.
But you need money to do it.
You need money to do it.
And you know, 4 of those names, just not, I mean, you know. Flacco, Suggs, Weddle, and Mosley. I mean, well, Mosley, I'll give Mosley. He could have been re-signed for the right price.
I'll tell you this. The Ravens, I think, were hesitant to re-sign Mosley for a big contract like the Jets offered him because they learned their lesson from Flacco. They didn't want to overpay a guy that wasn't going to possibly produce, especially when all of us with eyes seen the decline that Mosley may have had, the steps that he missed. And we're not even going to start talking about Weddle because, I mean, he definitely took a step back at the end of the season.
Mosley was dealing with the injury at the beginning of last year, too. And, I mean, again, he got his money. I mean, good for him.
Good.
That injury, I mean, Kenny Young stepped in.
Exactly.
In that
and that's what gives me hope.
I think
Kenny Young.
DaCosta was like, we don't have to pay a guy $80-some million, and you can pay Kenny Young a rookie contract.
Exactly, and Patrick Owasso, he stepped in. He's kind of that hybrid linebacker safety type that we were talking about too.
He had a huge second half. Too.
Yeah, I mean,
and then Judon.
Yeah,
I mean, he was a beast at the end all season, just a solid beast. And
they had to pick between Zadarius Smith and Matt Judon, and in fact, Matt Judon's another year, and they could probably sign him.
Yeah, it was easier decision.
Yeah, it's a way easier decision. I mean, would we have loved to have them both opposite sides of the ball? Yeah, that'd been great. But for who we got, I am confident in this defense. Again, you know, one thing I noticed in the, you know, watching the combine is there's a lot of speed and a lot of strength, a lot of fast, strong guys. And you know, when we heard that, you know, they got rid of Mosley, in my mind, they saw somebody. They're going to run with Kenny Young and probably pick up one of these new young linebackers. And then when they got rid of Suggs, I mean, to me, that deal was more one of those sentimental picks wearing this jersey right now. You know, one of those sentimental losses, but from a business point of view, it made sense because, again, how many times did you hear his name like the last 5 games of that season?
He disappeared. He had 1 sack in the last 10 games of the season.
And he was a big part of that 11-sack game against the Titans. And he fell off. I honestly predicted that him and Weddle would retire, not necessarily go to other teams, but it happened. It is. It's a business. I mean, Ed Reed did it, and he's revered as still one of the best Ravens in history. Yeah. And I think the same will go for Suggs.
Yeah, I mean,
no question.
Future Hall of Famer.
Future Hall of Famer for sure. And you best believe he's probably going to come back for that 1-day contract to retire a Raven in about a year. Yes, he's retiring next year. I can almost guarantee it.
And we were talking while we were setting up, and we were saying that the Ravens went from one of the oldest teams in the league to now one of the youngest. Yeah. And that's going to come with growing pains. It just happens. But again, we're putting the pieces in place. We're getting some money that we haven't had probably in years. You know, when have we picked up a prime time free agent, or, you know, like I just not past their prime? I mean, I'm not saying Weddle was past his prime, but you think Weddle, Steve Smith, Michael Crabtree, Anquan Bolden. I mean, yes, he was a good pickup at the time, but these guys were all older. And where's that, you know, 25, 26-year-old
I'll
player?
say this. If you saw last year, you had a ton of rookies contributing for this team.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think they realized after a long time of having good free agents to compensate for horrible drafts, they're finally at a point where they've got guys like Kenny Young, they've got guys like Marlon Humphrey who come in. They don't have to spend money on a Brandon Carter, which they did, by the way. Yeah. But you don't have to go out and get a Tony Jefferson. You can draft it.
And I think that leadership is gonna rise. There will be new leaders.
I think that's the Brandon Carr. I think that was part of that. He can be the leader of that secondary.
Jimmy Smith, even though he's more consistent than anybody I know, But he's a good player when he can play. When he's healthy and when he's not in trouble, he's great.
I was surprised there wasn't as much trade talk with him, because there was talk at the end of the year that they were going to trade Jimmy Smith. And I mean, maybe they still do for the draft.
Well, I think with getting rid of Weddle, you need to maintain some of your secondary.
You can't, yes. You have to have a plan in place, and he apparently is part of that plan.
I mean, they probably didn't like what they were getting back. I mean, you got a guy who's been suspended twice, injured multiple times. It's still under contract. He's still a pretty solid, talent. Yeah. And you're pairing him. He's a number 2 essentially with Marlon Humphrey.
Yes.
You can afford to have him in that secondary.
But let's look at what the Ravens can afford right now, and 2 names, at least on the Ravens' radar on the offense, whether you think they need them or not. Le'Veon Bell, Mark Ingram. These are 2 names I've heard all day. Conflicting sources back and forth, obviously. Some people saying that it's the Jets and the Ravens tied to take Le'Veon Bell. Then other people are saying that Mark Ingram, they've given an offer to Mark Ingram. Yeah. And, of course, Mark Ingram probably one of the victims of the Saints' crazy-ass offense last year, where he didn't get as many touches. He's going to be hungry. And, honestly, if I had to pick 2, I'd go with Mark Ingram. I think he has a lot more to prove, honestly, in my opinion. Yes, Le'Veon Bell is one of the best running backs, but how much is he going to cost compared to Mark Ingram?
I mean, yes, obviously he's going to be more cost effective, but production wise, and I think Le'Veon. I'm looking at what will benefit Lamar Jackson the most, and I think Le'Veon Bell benefits Lamar Jackson the most. I don't think Mark Ingram brings as much. Again, yes, he's considered maybe that bruiser back. He can bust through. But I don't know. I mean, I was just reading something before we went on about Tevin Coleman. I mean, he's an option, and he did good with in Atlanta. I mean, he stepped in when Freeman went down. So I just feel like if I had to choose, obviously I'm choosing Le'Veon. I think that's the best.
So I'm thinking with Ozzie Newsome in mind, and that's obviously not the reality we're
in now. And Mark Ingram's he's 30. Running backs don't have.
They may not hit either of them. I mean,
true.
Gus Edwards had almost over 5.5 yards per carry. I mean, what would you be getting from Mark Ingram that you're already not getting from an undrafted rookie?
And you have Buck Allen too. Don't forget, Buck Allen's there, and I just Kenneth Dixon, and the Ravens have been high on him even with all his troubles and his injuries. The Ravens have been high on Ken Dixon. So, again, if he's there for the right price,
they'll take him. But they're not going to force the issue.
Yeah, and I did hear reports that the longer he's out there, that $11 to $12 million range, the teams are willing to go. That's where they're going to go per year. So, if the Ravens are going to be smart about it, they're not just going to go get him just to get him. Yeah. They're not going to give him 16, 17, 18 million a year. There's no way.
There's no way at all.
So if that number comes down, the Ravens are going to pick up the phone. If not, he'll go to the Jets for that absurd contract, and they'll probably regret it in 3 or 4 years. I mean, that's the MO of the Jets.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, even myself at times, forget. There's a lot of money tied up in Le'Veon Bell, and a lot of money that we now have. Why waste it on one player that you could probably get many more players? The draft is coming up. Who knows? If you're really hungry for a running back, who knows? There could be better running backs in the draft. Yeah. You don't know. Just don't know yet.
I think the one thing I would question as a Ravens fan about Le'Veon Bell is his commitment.
Yeah.
The one thing about the Ravens is it was always about the team.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Harbaugh would preach: the team, the team, the team. And is Le'Veon Bell gonna fit in that mold with the team? Now, I've seen a lot of Ravens players trying to recruit. Marlon Humphrey's tweeting every day trying to get some player here. So, I mean, I'm sure if he did come to Baltimore, he would be accepted by the team. That he would have to buy in, though, as well. Yeah. And, again, there's other running backs out there that aren't named Bell and Ingram. Tevin Coleman, again, was an option. Mm-hmm. And, again, there's been talks in mock drafts about us drafting a running back. So, but now that we've lost some of these players, I mean, there's other needs that we may need now. So we'll see.
Yeah. Again, this is a pretty, at least in the first few days of this free agency, it's been pretty wild. It's been wild. But again, the Ravens have yet to make a big signing. A lot of teams have been throwing a lot of money out there. Primarily, the Raiders have been throwing a lot of money.
The Redskins.
Redskins just changed the landscape for defensive backs getting paid with that contract.
And Green Bay.
A bunch of teams that didn't make the playoffs that are desperate to make moves. Meanwhile, teams like Pittsburgh, New England, Baltimore let their players go and get kicks.
Yep.
And they're continuing the ones we see in the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
I'm not too worried, personally.
It's not the team that wins the offseason.
No.
Cleveland has done this before. And the Raiders have done this before. Now, again, I'm not saying Cleveland's not on the upswing because they got a hell of a quarterback, and now they just got a hell of a wide receiver. But
Kareem Hunt, too. Think about him.
Yeah.
You ever play football?
If he ever plays again.
With Nick Chubb. I mean, Nick Chubb's not a slouch either. No. So, I mean, they did give up a big defensive piece. But, again, that's a lot of personalities on that team, too. Exactly. Baker Mayfield, now OBJ. Again, it's not all about the name. Sometimes it's about the chemistry. And the Ravens, they've always had a good team, and that's what it comes down to. So just because you win the offseason doesn't mean you're going to win the division or win the Super Bowl. So we'll see.
Yeah, and we will keep you covered as this goes on, obviously through the website, through Facebook, other little videos here and there as updates come, because we're waiting to see what the Ravens do again. Do they need to? Probably not yet. It's not like it's after hearing what we had to say. It's definitely not dire that they make some reckless move like some of these teams are. But I think one thing to take away from this is that the Ravens front office has always been smart. Yeah. They've always been smart. They've always been one of the better ones. And the players they unloaded were players they were going to end up having to lose a lot of money on overpaying. So there's no stress there. Knee-jerk reactions, of course, we're worried because you start losing those names that you're used to hearing. But again, this is football, names made every year. So that being said, whether you're watching on thisislittube.com or you're watching on YouTube, stay tuned. We have so much more for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below. Check out our other videos, and a big shout out to our official sponsor, Lucky Finds, on eBay and Instagram. The links and the post and his tag name are down below. Stay tuned and take care.